And we are live. Welcome to CAD Live, another world-class episode of this fantastic show. So look, today we've actually got some good news, because normally it's all bad news, and wherever you are pretty much in the world, but certainly if you're in the United Kingdom, we've had a slew of bad news just recently about the resurgence of the illness and restrictions coming with that and all the rest of it. But Today, gentlemen, we have some very good news, which I'm going to be talking about, and that is the coming of a new age of degeneracy. A new roaring 20s is going to be upon us very soon. So we're going to be talking about that in the show today. If you're watching this live, thank you very much for tuning in. Appreciate it as always. As it says below, please put your comments into the chat. Anything that you want to say, any thoughts you've got, etc., just share them with me. Share them with the audience. Any issues you got, challenges, stick them in the chat. We'll sort them out live on air. And if you're watching this on the replay, thank you very much for doing so. And I hope that you get a ton of value from this world-class episode. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is looking at some claims that have been made by an epidemiologist who's called Dr. Nicholas Christakis. Okay, so Dr. Nicholas Christakis has just published, or I think it was a month or so ago actually, but he's published a new book which is called Apollo's Arrow, The Profound and Enduring Impact of Coronavirus on the Way We Live, which is Apollo's Arrow, The Profound and Enduring Impact of Coronavirus on the Way We Live. Now, I've got a copy of this book, and I've just started listening to the audio version. So, full disclosure, I haven't read the whole book yet, but I have started it. And to be honest, because what I'm going to be showing you is some of the more salacious headlines that have been generated by this book and the reasons that we should be celebrating. But to be completely honest, the book is not all. Well, I'll tell you what, let's back up a bit. Let me show you what the newspapers in the UK are saying about this book, because it's kind of interesting. Okay, so let me share the screen and let's go to this, which is an article. Sorry, there's loads of adverts and things on this page, but this is an article that appeared in the Star newspaper today. And as you can see, the headline here is "Roaring 20s will be the post-COVID vaccine sex fest, an era of vice and indulgence." I mean, after months and months and months of bad news in the United Kingdom, and the prospect of trucks queuing up at the borders, at the ports, and truck drivers getting stuck there over Christmas, and all of the turmoil that we're seeing, being barred from 48 countries or whatever it is for being able to fly, all this craziness that's going on, and other places in the world, you may not have quite those challenges, but we've all certainly got stuff to deal with as regards to this. Finally, we see a little bit of good news, because apparently, according to Dr. Christakis, the 2020s will be a sex fest and full of vice and indulgence. Okay, so, and then the subheadline says, being stuck inside during the coronavirus panic has been tough for millions of people, and it could have a huge impact on how we behave afterwards, according to experts. Now, what you might notice, if you've been paying attention to this channel and to my rantings over the last 9 months, really, is that really all what he's saying is no different to what I've been saying for most of the year, which is to say that if you tamp down human nature, then it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't go away, it just comes up again at another time. But anyway, let's read a little bit more about what it says here. The rest of the 2020s will be filled with sexual licentiousness after people across the world emerge from lockdowns enforced by the coronavirus pandemic, an expert has predicted. This exciting prediction has been made by Yale professor Dr. Nicholas Christakis in his book, Apollo's Arrow, The Profound and Enduring Impact of Coronavirus on the Way We Live. Social epidemiologist Dr. Christakis says society will make up for lost time as soon as it's safe to. During academics, you get increases in religiosity. People become more abstemious. They save money. They get risk averse. And we're seeing all of that now. just as we have for hundreds of years during epidemics. Christakis told The Guardian, and that's a nice picture there of some of the degeneracy we may see afterwards. In 2024, all those pandemic trends will be reversed. People will relentlessly seek out social interactions. Dr. Christakis says this could include sexual licentiousness, liberal spending, and a reverse of religiosity. I'm sorry for all the sensitive traditionalists who are tuning into this, but he does say that. I have to confirm. He says this could result in a reverse of religiosity. Okay, so some pretty wild times ahead. Here we go. Let's just put this in the chat. That's the link to this particular advert. This particular article. And then he says, one of the arguments in the book is that what's happening to us may seem to so many people to be alien and unnatural, but plagues are not new to our species. They're just new to us, which is true. I read the book by Daniel Defoe, In the Plague Year, earlier this year, which is kind of does what it says on the tin, really describes London during the year of the Great Plague. And it was interesting actually to see a lot of the parallels between what's happening now and what happened all those hundreds of years ago. In his book, he argues that once pandemics end, there tends to be a period where people seek out extensive social interaction, and which Dr. Christakis predicts will be a second roaring 20s, just as was the case after the 1918 flu pandemic. Sorry, guys, just got to... and there's a lovely picture of some people kissing. And then he goes on to talk about how all this stuff's happened before. But that's a picture of the roaring 20s. So this dude here, this Chad in the middle, surrounded by these flapper-esque ladies, he's enjoying the fruits of that 1920s roaring decade. And yeah, so there you can see the argument he's basically making, which is that, you know, we're going to go back to that really notorious time in the 1920s, okay? Between the wars, right? I mean, if you think about like Berlin, Weimar Berlin in the 1920s, the height of decadence and degeneracy, everyone was going crazy. I mean, there were other factors involved as well. I mean, of course, in Germany, there was hyperinflation and there was extreme poverty and economic destruction, basically, and social unrest. Well, you know, it's kind of like it's pretty clear we're not that far off that here, right? So all of the circumstances, and of course, this was after the flu pandemic in 1918. So everything is set up to see exactly the same thing. Now, the reason why, hang on a second, let me just do another share screen. Because just to explain, why is he saying 2024? Why is he not saying next year? Because really, we want this sort of degeneracy to be kicking off next year, don't we? But what he is saying, and it becomes clearer when you go to The Guardian, because a few different titles, a few different media outlets have covered this, and I think that probably the main one was in The Guardian, which is a slightly more cerebral take on the same thing. But here, he explains why 2024. Let me just find it for you. Okay, yeah, so here we go. So yeah, so once again, then once pandemics end, and he's looking at a historical perspective here, because this guy is a how's he titled here? He's a social epidemiologist, okay? So he's an epidemiologist, but he looks at how pandemics manifest themselves within society, okay? And so he says, so he's got that sort of meta grasp of this subject matter. And he says, once pandemics end, there's often a period when people seek out extensive social interaction, okay? And he's predicting that there's going to be another roaring 20s, as we've said, okay? And down here it says, this future, Christakis predicts, will not come until society has time to distribute the vaccine, okay? So probably through 2021, that's going to be taking place, and had time to recover from the socioeconomic devastation it has wrought. which is, and he's saying the 2 years after that, which is perhaps a slightly depressing thought. But hold on, guys, because then the vision he lays out for 2024 and beyond is one filled with experiences, pined in, I don't know what that means, pined in for isolation. Pined for in isolation, packed stadiums, crowded nightclubs, and flourishing arts. In 2024, all of those pandemic trends will be reversed. People will relentlessly seek out social interaction, sexual licentiousness, liberal spending, a reverse of religiosity. Okay, so pretty exciting stuff, really. I mean, how's everyone feeling about this so far? Do we think that this is a likely outcome? I kind of do, to be honest. Here we go. That's the Guardian article, okay, where they talk about this. And the book is called, oh God, let me just try and find the title of the book, and I'll find the Amazon link for you. But as I say, I've just started reading the book now, and it's a bit more serious than you might think, because if you look at these headlines, particularly that headline in the Star, which is quite frankly a fairly down market newspaper in the United Kingdom, you would think that this book was just a big sort of sex fest type thing, but actually it's not. This guy's a Yale professor, and he is as I say, he's writing this book from a sort of meta perspective on pandemics and the way that they behave within society. So he's just making the point that, look, this is what's happened in the past, right? In the past, when these things have happened, and they have happened before, many times over the course of history, when these things have happened in the past before, what has tended to happen as a result is that people have afterwards gone pretty nuts. Okay, people have gone pretty nuts, and they have started to party and get together and have a good time. Okay, I've just stuck up the that's the Amazon.com link. Let's see if we can do a share screen on this as well, so you can have a look at the book. Here we go. That is the beautiful book. There you go. Apollo's Arrow. Nice cover, actually. Nice cover. Nice cover on that book there, you can see. So there you go. And that really reflects what I've been saying, and actually other people as well, like John MLD and different people in this side of the internet have been saying really since this whole damn thing started, right? Because I remember at the beginning, I remember right back at the beginning of this pandemic, right? And people were sort of saying, oh, this is the end of dating, this is the end of socializing, blah, blah, blah. And of course, that was always absolute nonsense. I mean, it was always ridiculous, because human nature is as it is, right? And it's existed for many, many tens of thousands of years, very similarly to how it does now. I mean, like, as I keep banging on about, I've been reading a lot of Shakespeare this year, who was writing, 500 or so years ago, whatever. And one of the reasons I think that Shakespeare is such an enduring writer and touch point of culture for us is that we can recognize the characters. It's not markedly different. There are still people partying in Shakespeare. There are still people getting drunk. There are still people having sex, etc., etc. And we can go beyond Shakespeare. We go back to the classics. We go back to the Greek and Roman literature, and we look at what happens in those books and those stories. And just going to send something now as well. And yeah, we look at all of those stories from times of antiquity, and we see that human nature hasn't really changed. It hasn't really changed for thousands of years. So if you think that we're going to see a marked change in human nature just because of a pandemic that at the moment has gone on for nearly a year, and is likely to go on for a bit longer, but not in the course of human history. This is a drop in the ocean. It's a sand on the beach, isn't it? Right. So sand on the beach. So if you think, as a result of that human nature is going to fundamentally change, then you are mistaken, because it isn't. And what this dude is saying is basically, it's going to be party time. 2024, it's going to be party time. It's going to be off the scale. It's going to be the Cancun pool party. Okay, it's just going to be it's going to be going nuts, and we all need to be aware of that, and we need to be in a position to prepare ourselves for that. But more importantly, something to celebrate, right? Because like humanity is not. I think one of the reasons why it's been so hard to really enforce a lot of these restrictions is because they are contrary really to the way that humans operate. Okay, that's just the reality of it. And some people are on board with them, and they follow the letter of the law, and others aren't. And I'm not getting into the politics of it particularly, but most people, in fact, actually there's been studies done where they've spoken to people, and even people who are overtly or on the surface very on board with the regulations, even those people have still planned privately to bend the rules, or to even break the rules. Okay, and even people who are really, really on board and say, yeah, there should be tight restrictions, we should be locked down, whatever, though even those people will in reality find ways to get around the rules. And the reason is because the rules are fundamentally contrary to what makes us human. And we are under the surface, we're a pretty unruly bunch, really. Many people like chaos. They like getting together in big crowds. They like having crazy, wild sex, kind of situations together and stuff like this. I mean, it is just, human beings are not this sanitized, polite, easily compartmentalized race. It is just this, we are a lot more grubby than that. We're a lot more bestial than that. And, we should all celebrate that, really, because this is part of our humanity. This is what separates us from, well, the AI that will soon be coming in to take over. So I hope you guys are looking forward to the 2024 party. I mean, listen, to be fair, I think this guy is actually being a little bit pessimistic here, because he's saying 2024, and I understand why. I understand why he's saying 2024, because he's saying it's going to take a little while, for the recovery to set in, and etc. etc. But I think, to be honest, I think that we're going to see these effects start to come sooner, because I think, we saw this this year, even in London. We saw it this year in London, as and when they started to lift restrictions, even without lifting them completely, but even as they started to lift restrictions, people just went out and went wild. They just went out and started partying. That's just how it was, and it's going to happen again, And this is what this guy's saying. And the interesting thing about his book and the way that he's looking at it is he's looking at it within a historical context, because he's somebody who studies this stuff, and he's saying that this has happened before, and it's going to happen again this time. Okay, so it's all good stuff, and it's good news. It's good news that from this year of horrific, terrible, restrictive news, we're finally going to be seeing some good, honest degeneracy coming back into the fray. So I hope everyone's pleased with that. Let's have a look through the comments here. If you can drop any questions in, then I will do my best to answer them. Modern Life Dating says, I'm in America and need a good wank from one of my Asian birds. This land is sick with fatness and bad attitude women. I'm sorry to hear that. Anon says, girls have been ultra thirsty this year. It's pretty wild. Exactly, because you can't suppress. That's it. That's what I'm saying. You can't suppress human nature. You're never going to suppress human nature. It just doesn't happen. It's just not going to happen. Crime went through the roof back then. Well, yeah, but what of it, man? I mean, do you want to have a square, boring society where we all go to bed on time and tuck ourselves up at 5 p.m. and sit and do the crossword and then go to bed by 10 and, all follow all the rules? Or do you want to have a bit of passion? Do you want to have a bit of adventure? Do you want to have a bit of excitement, Because listen, we're all going to be dead pretty soon, I mean, like, I don't know. What time is it now? We've been on for 20 minutes. I may not even make it to the end of this stream. I mean, I'm getting on a bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could drop dead before the end of this stream. So what would you rather have? Would you rather have a life that's demarcated by passion, by adventure, by exhilaration, by excitement? Or would you rather die the slow, lingering death of conformity? And what we're being told here, what Dr. Christakis is outlining in this new book, is that it is likely that we're going to be entering a new age of spectacle, an age of spectacle, an age of celebration, an age of enjoyment of the essential nature. And what could be better than that? What could be better than that for us as human beings? Other than to enjoy those sensual pleasures of the flesh, that celebration of what it is to be an animal, but at one with our consciousness at the same time. I mean, how incredible is that, right? So there is plenty to look forward to. Ben says, I'm a pretty devout Christian, but I'm also libertarian. Let the degeneracy happen. Exactly. Thank you, man. I'm glad to hear that. I don't know that the two things are necessarily entirely opposed. I will be going to a church tomorrow. I went to a church actually a few days ago and enjoyed it very much. I think there's a time and place for everything. I didn't burst into flames, amazingly. So that was a surprise, but we're likely to be doing something again tomorrow, which should be good. And I think, I'm on all sides. I mean, I'm for wherever you can get sucker from, not sucking. Sucker, wherever you can get sucker from, I think is valid. I think there's a huge place for religion in our societies, and I think one of the worst things actually that happened in the UK in the last lockdown in November was that they closed down places of worship. Okay, or they didn't close them down. You could still go into the churches. You could still, go in and do private prayer and stuff, but you weren't able to attend communal services. And while I don't frequently attend communal services, nevertheless, I thought that was a very, very bad thing, because I think human beings, we just have this intrinsic need to come together, don't we? And I don't mean like come together like that, although, obviously that is included as well. But I just mean we have this intrinsic need to as groups to come together. I mean, look at big celebrations, look at football crowds or sports game crowds. Look at the crowds at rock concerts or raves or beach parties in Thailand. I mean, there's just this communal thing, isn't there? We want to come together, and it's not just about our friends. It's not just about people in support bubbles. It's like we want to come together en masse. It's a very, very fundamental human need, and that, I believe, cannot be suppressed. And I think that he's right in that. I think that as and when these restrictions start to be lifted, we are going to see an explosion of this, and it's really hard to contain. And as I said, we've seen that in this country this year, really, really hard to contain, because the force of human nature is too strong. This is why you've got private parties going on, private raves going on, secret raves, and all this kind of stuff, because people just want to do it, and that's very, very powerful. And the law is powerful to an extent, but it's not as powerful as human nature. So, there we go. Basil says, the deep state would love a good distraction while they take us down. I mean, Basil, to be honest, if they can open up Kit Kat Club in Berlin and Torture Garden in London again, then the deep state can go all out. The deep state can do whatever it wants. I to be honest, I would get the vaccine, in the old nether regions, if it meant that we could get the parties rocking again. Because listen, what is more important? What's more important? You can be a digital soldier and you can battle the deep state on social media, but really, where's it going to get you? In a few decades, you're going to be dead, and nobody sits on their deathbed and thinks, thank God I posted enough memes on social media calling out the deep state. I wish I'd have done it more. Nobody says that. Nobody says that. The times in your life that you're going to think about it with joy and pleasure and that misty-eyed recollection as you slowly breathe your last. You know, those moments are going to be the moments of communal joy. They're going to be those moments with other people. They're going to be those moments of life and passion and animal passion. Okay, it's not worrying about the deep state and all that BS. Lupi says, I'm together. Yes, exactly. Suleiman says, get to confessions, you heathen. Exactly. Well, hopefully I will be very soon. Jaren says, I heard the vaccine. Well, yes, I've heard something about that, but then I heard that they've said that the illness itself can contribute to erectile dysfunction. I don't know whether that's true or not, but the person who was saying I heard it on a podcast. He was saying, look, it's not. They've got to make it so bad. It's not bad enough that potentially this thing could kill you if you're in an at-risk category, but they've got to say it could give you ED as well. So that they've got to just try and get people any way they can. Right? What else have we got? Loft Trader says libertarian minds have great opportunities in this meltdown of the Western world. I think that's very true, and I think that's very true. And the thing is that what's he saying again? I mean, there's a lot going on at the moment that is pretty anarchic, really. There are things going on in the country where I am at the moment, which are pretty crazy, and there are things going on in America, which are pretty crazy, and in other places as well. And you might look at it and think, well, where's all this going, and what are we gonna do? And I just wish everything kind of went back to normal, and we could just have a nice cup of tea and relax. But actually, when you think about it, out of great chaos and great confusion and seismic social shifting sands comes great opportunity. Okay, particularly if you are somebody who is mobile. If you're somebody who's got that ability to carve out their own life for themselves, you've got that ability to kind of do what they want to do, then there are huge opportunities here for sure. I mean, I know people who are, even at the moment, UK theoretically travel's banned, but I know people who are traveling right now. They're having an amazing time. They're going to cool places. They're having an amazing time. There are places on this planet where people are still having a good time, and we may not be sitting in one right now, but you certainly can get there, particularly if you are somebody who has made an effort to ensure that they are to some degree unchained by societal convention. Okay, they're unchained by expectation and by having to be in one particular place and by having to answer to one particular boss and all of that kind of thing. So this is why it's so important that we organize our lives in a manner that means that we are able to to take advantage, frankly, to take advantage of this new reality that we're all living in. Chris says Tulum is raging. Is that the case? I'd be interested to know about that, Chris, because a friend of mine, well, I say actually James Tusk was over in Mexico quite recently, and if you go to his YouTube channel, you can see all of his content on that. Now, yes, Tulum is apparently raging. I don't know if anybody's over there or they want to. If you could share a little bit more on that, that'd be really interesting. It would be a great place to get over there for sure. Well, Suleiman, I told you there was good news. The good news just keeps coming, mate. Full of Brits, awesome stuff. Well, I'm not surprised. I don't think there's any Brits left over here, really, to be honest. The only reason we're here is human nature is unbeaten. So Brandon says, if seeking pleasure solely for itself, pain always follows suit. But does it? But does it? You see, I mean, like, I know what he's saying. And listen, I'm somebody who sought pleasure uncritically in my existence many times. And I do see what you're saying. But isn't this just the sort of thing? Isn't this just the kind of thing that people say because it sounds good? Like, it kind of sounds right, doesn't it, to say that? It kind of sounds like, I don't know, man. It's like that, the kind of Hallmark greeting card kind of thing, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, just pleasure on its own and no responsibility leads to bad things. And then if you tweet something like that, say, then you'll get all these people on Twitter like upvoting it, go, yeah, that's right. But is it really true? Or is it just the kind of thing that you say because it sounds good? And it's the kind of thing that gets you a pat on the back from other people? I mean, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. What if you were somebody, and timelines are important here as well, aren't they? What if you were somebody who dedicated your life, say you're in your 20s, you're like, right, I'm dedicating my life entirely to pleasure. I'm just gonna rock out. I'm gonna go to Tulum. I'm gonna do a load of pills. I'm gonna meet models and have sex with them. I'm just gonna have this crazy, amazing time. And what if that guy does that, and then at the age of 29, he goes to bed. He goes to bed one night. He's in Tulum. He's got a couple of models here. He's mollied up, or whatever you want to call it, all the rest of it. And then he just, he passes away overnight by natural causes. Okay. Well, that guy hasn't had any pain, has he? If just say that he just died for no reason, just whatever, very sad, but whatever, it happens. Well, that guy has sought pleasure, and he hasn't experienced pain because his life ended before there was even any time for that. Okay, so consequences of the kind that you are referring to are not always going to be forthcoming, right? It's not a mathematical equation that pleasure seeking always results in pain, or that pain always manifests itself. I don't think. I mean, a lot of people get away with a lot of stuff. I mean, and also as well, this is a kind of very Protestant work ethic-y type of position, isn't it? It's very sort of like, well, you should do the right thing because you'll be rewarded in heaven and everything like that. But there, let's be honest, there are plenty of rich people. There are plenty of rich people out there who are seeking pleasure, having an amazing time. Is pain following suit? Maybe of a kind, but I think that you would be surprised what people can get away with and how long they can get away with it for, without hitting hitting the hard shoulder in the way that you are implying here. I don't know. What does other people think about that? I'm not sure. Right. 5.2 balding Indian janitor is here. He says degeneracy will increase, but so will hypergamy. Women are not just going to be open to NSA. Oh, women are just going to be open to NSA with the top 1% males, not just the average or slightly above average guy. Well, maybe, yeah. I mean, I don't think that's going to change markedly. I think it's always incumbent upon you to, get yourself in the best tip-top physical condition, and just be as Chad as you possibly can, of course. But there's going to be more opportunities for sure. All right, so Union with One, this says, my job is a pleasure. My relationships are a pleasure. Eating steak and sashimi is a pleasure. Pain hasn't come as a result. And this is another thing as well, because I was tweeting a lot about hedonism, and I was saying hedonism is good and we should seek to lean into hedonism. And what is the point of life if you're not pursuing pleasure, if you're not pursuing your own ends, kind of thing? And when you post things like that, you get quite a lot of flack, because people will say no, because pleasure, in itself is worthless, and you have to be an honorable man because otherwise, you'll find misery and everything. But another side to this is it also depends on what you regard as being pleasure. I mean, like, for example, this afternoon I went for a run and hurt the old hip, a little bit. But that aside, I find exercise very pleasurable. I would say there's a hedonic aspect in exercise for me. I find reading high quality literature to have hedonic pleasure. I find writing to have hedonic pleasure. So it's not all about going to the club and, listening to trap music and spraying champagne, right? I mean, we can find hedonic pleasure in other things as well, as union implies here. And so, and some of those, many of those things can be self-nurturing as well. So that's a very important point, in addition to the one that I made before, which is to say that it also depends on what you are talking about when you talk about pleasure. Alex says karma doesn't happen to everyone, and that's absolutely true. I mean, you need to watch the film Crimes and Misdemeanors by Woody Allen, which is a very great film. In my view, one of his best movies, when he fused comedy and tragedy, really. Tragicomedy. He fused tragedy and comedy effectively for the first and perhaps last time, really. Very, very great film. I actually watched it. The last time I watched it was in Sarajevo with Tom Torero, bizarrely enough. But very, very great film. And basically, the whole premise of the film, the whole point of the film, is that you get a man who commits murder. Actually, so this is going beyond hedonism. This is, but it's linked with hedonism because he's having an affair with a mistress, and the mistress threatens to tell his wife about what's going on if he doesn't, come clean and go with her, whatever. So, so he's being blackmailed by this woman who he's been having an affair with, thus acting out hedonically, right? And so he decides, and he gets really stressed out and anxious and everything, and he elects to have her murdered. So he speaks to his brother, who's a bit of a ne'er-do-well, a bit of a New Jersey kind of a ne'er-do-well. So this guy's like in Manhattan upper class society, and his brother's sort of like hey, we'll get it started. No worries, kind of guy. And the woman gets murdered. The woman gets killed. Now, after that, he spends a lot of time very, very worried because he thinks, well, I'm going to get found out. What happens when I get found out? I'm going to lose this perfect life that I've built. He's also feeling guilt, obviously, for having done what he's done, etc., etc. And without trying to give too much away, the point of the film is that in the end, he does get away with it. He doesn't get caught. Okay, he gets everything that he wanted. He's had this affair with the mistress. The mistress was acting up. He gets rid of her. He continues on with the wife happily. His daughter grows up, becomes a woman and gets married. Nothing adverse happens to him at all. And sometimes this is the case. Okay, sometimes this is the case. So it's not a mathematical formula. It's not a mathematical formula to say that just because you do something that is deemed socially to be, not worthy, because that's what we're talking about here, isn't it? It's like I do worthy things, because if you just seek pleasure, then you will die alone, kind of thing. And it's like, well, not necessarily. There are plenty of people who are balling it every weekend, and they're having a great time. Now, yes, you could argue, you could say, but are they really happy inside? Deep down, are they really satisfied? And that too is valid. Okay. And when we look at people like former dating coaches who are, who then turn to Christ and grow a big beard and all that kind of thing, they are seeking to fill a hole that was there for a long time. They're seeking because spirituality is also an important human requirement. Okay, so you've got the urge, the desire for human beings to come together en masse and to socialize together and all of this, the crazy like phone party type thing, and you see that being replicated in society after society all over the world for thousands of years. But spirituality, that is that yearning for something outside of ourselves, that too is also a very fundamental human urge. Sure. And that's why before I talked about going to the church, because I'm not a formally religious person, but there is something pleasurable to be found in going to, sitting in a church ceremony in terms of indulging that spiritual need that you have, and also in terms of communing with other people as well. There is something within that for sure, and in some senses, you might regard religion as being just another hedonistic form of pleasure. Okay, because why do people do it? I mean, they'll say they're doing it because they're doing the right thing and blah blah blah. But make no mistake. Those nice little old ladies who are going to the church every week, every Sunday, and whatever, they're getting something out of that. They're getting a buzz is the wrong word, but they're getting a sense of community. They're getting a sense of something outside of themselves. Okay, and that is a pleasure like anything else. I'm not saying it's equivalent to, smoking crack or something, but how different is it really? We do these things to make ourselves feel better. Okay, and that includes religion, includes drugs, it includes sex, all of it. So yeah. Suleiman says, I did hedonic modeling. That wasn't fun. I haven't, but I do want to go, and I think it's still open at the moment, actually, for Brits. Union says karma just means actions. If you put out generous actions as a principle, you will eventually receive the same kind in return. Don't expect a 1-to-1 return ratio. Indeed. Oho says, is promiscuous mating strategy a more pragmatic approach in these circumstances? Probably. But everyone's got to make their own call on that. Really. It depends what you want your life to look like in the end. Anon says, we live in a capitalist world. I think you have to have pain to get pleasure unless you inherit the money. Yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think you need to make sacrifices to get the things that you want, for sure. But remember, a lot of people as well, I mean, making money, building the business, blah, blah, blah. I mean, a lot of people are workaholics, particularly on this side of the internet. A lot of the people that have, do YouTube channels and have these brands and stuff, they are very, very driven people. They have that kind of workaholic tendency. And again, you're getting something out of that. You're getting that dopamine hit out of that, just the same as you would be with a drink or a drug or whatever, right? And I mean, it's such a common thing. It's such a common thing. You get people who are alcoholics, or people who are, they've been addicted to drugs, or addicted to certain processes like sex or like eating or whatever, and and those people, they'll put down that thing that is damaging them. They'll stop drinking, they'll stop doing the drugs, whatever, and then they become workaholics, right? They just become obsessed with work, and they're working for like hours and hours, 20 hours a day or whatever it is, and that is just another way. That's just another way of filling the hole. It's all about filling that internal emptiness. Okay, that's all it's about. All of these different things, religion as well. It's all just different strategies to do the same thing. And you can make an argument, and it's a good argument, that working on a business is better than smoking crack. You can make that argument for sure, and I don't really dispute that, because the outcome of creating a business is hopefully that you're going to help people or entertain people or give people a service or whatever. But that doesn't detract from the fact that the underlying impulse is not different to smoking crack. And it also doesn't detract from the fact that people can mess themselves up in many, many different unique ways. Okay. And yes, if you smoke crack, then that is likely to be a faster ride towards messing yourself up. But to be honest, many people have that self-destructive element to their nature, and many, many people can end up suffering consequences of either mild or more extreme types, even if they're doing something that's socially sanctioned. Okay, even if they're doing, the right thing, if they have that obsessive nature, if they're doing it to fill that emptiness, then there is a chance that they're going to suffer some negative consequences as a result. So take from that what you will, but exactly, fill the hole. Adam says, I'm in one of the few tier 2 areas left in England, going to the pub for Christmas beers tomorrow. Maybe Cornwall. Cornwall's still in tier 2. And another place, I can't remember where the other place was, but Jaren says, we all trying to cope with the emptiness of our lives. Absolutely. I mean, we all are in different ways. I mean, it's not, and that sounds really negative, and it's not necessarily, because well, I mean, it is what it is, right? But everybody, we all need ways to cope with the passing of time and trying to work out what the hell we're kind of doing here, and why we're here during the middle of this current crazy global situation and everything else. We're all trying to fill that gap. Dorset, okay, very nice part of the world, very lovely place. Corty says, what will be the most important seduction skill for 2021? I think differentiation and transgressiveness. And actually, we'll do a show about transgressiveness perhaps next week. I was doing a stream with my Patreon guys before, and we were talking about a really good article that's on the Red Pill Reddit talking about transgressiveness and why that's attractive. And this is something I've talked about in CAD Academy. It's something I've talked about on the streams and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I can't remember why I got onto that. But anyway, we'll probably cover that next week, because it's so transgressiveness, really, which is kind of like translated as being not giving a damn, right? Okay, like giving less of a damn, having standout, being prepared to step outside of the norm, not being hidebound by convention, being prepared to go against the grain. That will be, or those qualities will be the most important in seduction in 2021 and beyond, because, as we go into this new age of degeneracy that Dr. Christakis is predicting, then, as somebody else said, there's going to be a lot of competition. And we, you need to stand out, and like the way you're going to stand out is not by being an also-ran. It's not by being one of the herd. Majestic says, thoughts on Elon? He has no game, but has 7 kids. If you ask Darwin, he would say Elon is winning. Well, I mean, yeah, whatever. I don't really care, to be honest. I don't know enough about him, to be honest, to give a really informed answer to that. And I also don't really care what Darwin or anybody else would think, really. I mean, I don't think that is a good measure by which one should live one's life. Apart from anything else, Darwin is dead, so his opinion or not of me is pretty irrelevant, and also impossible for him to have one, because he has no sentient awareness. I think it's more important to focus on what people have achieved. And obviously, Elon Musk is somebody who has achieved very, very, very great things in his life, greater than, the majority of people will. And I think that's something to be applauded. I think he will be remembered for the work that he's done than for the 7 kids, right? And I think that's a key thing as well. So regardless of what Darwin might or might not say, if we resuscitated him, the important thing about Musk is the work that he's done and the changes that work may create within our society. You need to watch from the beginning, mate. There's an article. Have a read of. I've shared the article. There's an article talking about the fact that when we come out of this pandemic period, we're going to go into, or we are likely to go into a situation where there's a lot of partying and having sex and so on going on. Virus has made it a perfect time to practice eye contact. Sure, absolutely. Reproducing doesn't mean shit if you're not happy with your life. We're all headed 6 feet under. The universe doesn't care how many kids you pop out. Absolutely. I think they prefer hanging out with dumb guys. I don't think they necessarily prefer marrying them, because that's a different thing, isn't it? Anyway, listen, guys, I'm sorry to cut it off, but I do need to go because I've got to go and do a call again. But thanks everyone for tuning in. Listen, there probably won't be anything more tomorrow. The day after that's Christmas Day, be off then. Saturday, there's a Rule Zero, which I think is going to be on Rich Cooper's channel. Sunday, probably nothing. And then I will likely be back here doing another show on Monday next week. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Hope you have a fantastic, wonderful, amazing Christmas. Do give me a like, do give me a comment, do hit subscribe, and we will speak again very soon. Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.